Okay, hello folks. Thanks for experimenting with this technology for us. I'm going to try giving you a quick talk today about this Africa to America row that's taking place. Canadian Wildlife Federation is sponsoring it, and many other people are sponsoring it. And we have 4 guys in a boat rowing across Africa right now, and I just wanted to talk to you about what they might be seeing. Okay, quick introduction. My name is Sean Brilliant. I work for the Canadian Wildlife Federation. I manage the National Marine Conservation Program. I'm based in Halifax, Nova Scotia, in the Oceanography Department at Dalhousie University. I'm an avid naturalist. I enjoy looking for the strange little things in the world and trying to get pictures of them. More formally, my background is marine ecology and marine biology. So I've spent about 20 years studying everything from snails and slugs on beaches to whales and leatherback turtles and birds in the ocean and how they're moving around and using the ocean, the different patterns that they make. So today I'm going to talk to you about the Africa to Americas row. So what's this row all about? You may be following it. If not, just very briefly, this is 4 fellas in a rowboat that's about 10 meters long, rowing across the Atlantic Ocean. They've left from Senegal in Africa, and they're rowing over to the USA in North America. The distance they're going is about just under 6,500 kilometers, and they're doing this all by rowing power and taking their time going across. To put that into perspective, this is Canada, this is our country. If we went coast to coast from Newfoundland right over to Vancouver, we're looking at about 5,000 kilometers. So these guys are rowing the width of this ocean, and the width of which is greater than the width of our country, and we're the 2nd biggest country in the world. Why are we doing this? Why is the Canadian Wildlife Federation interested in this? Why are these guys doing this row? Well, here's Canada. Let's talk about this first. Here's our country. You're probably very familiar with this. We are the 2nd biggest country in the world, so we've got about 9 million square kilometers of land. But the thing most people forget, especially if you don't have an ocean handy, is that we also have a lot of ocean. Canada has about 6 million square kilometers of ocean that we're responsible for managing and looking after, and that we have the privilege of being able to use for resources or other things. But this means in total, of the 15 million square kilometers of what Canada is on this country, on this globe, 1/3 of that is ocean, and almost nobody lives there. Very few people work there. Relatively few people visit it. It's quite out of sight and it's out of mind, and yet it's a big part of what our country is and what it's all about. We also have the longest coastline in the world. 240,000 kilometers of coastline exists. So given the large amount of ocean that we have, given the enormous coastline that we have, it's very clear that Canada is an ocean country, whether we realize it or not, whether it's an ocean nation. One thing that's interesting, someone pointed out about this talk that I've given before, is that a lot of this coastline is up in the Arctic. Canada is also an Arctic nation, and I think 3/4 of our coastline is actually Arctic coastline as well. So that's very interesting. These guys aren't in the ocean though. Who owns the ocean is the other thing I wanted to talk to you about. Here's a map of the world. The land is in green. Around each land, around each continent, around each country is what is often called the 200 nautical mile limit, or the exclusive economic zone of each country. And if we draw the EEZs around each of the countries in the world, that's what this map is showing here. The EEZs are sort of shown in blue, and the land is in green. Everything else in white is what's called high seas. They have no national jurisdiction. There is essentially no one looking after this. And it's not entirely true. There is no one nation looking after this. There are agreements between nations about how they use the high seas, but for the most part, nobody uses this area. And this comprises over 60% of the oceans. So most of what the ocean is actually ungoverned. It's not being managed by any one nation, by any one specific nation. And this is another point, sort of the second point to what this row is about. These guys are sort of rowing across this area. We want to give a sense of the fact that what is out there and what is in the ocean, what is a part of Canada's oceans, exist around the world, and it has to be looked after. We need to be aware of it to be able to look after it as well. We do have another ocean-going project on the go right now called the Great Canadian Turtle Race, and it involves these leatherback turtles. These are one of the largest reptiles in the world. It's the largest marine reptile in the world. It's a giant turtle that lives in the ocean. They come to Canadian waters every year to feed on jellyfish, these big giant jellyfish, and they fatten up before they swim south to their nesting beaches again and their mating grounds. What we did this past year is we tagged 10 of them while they were up here off the coast of Atlantic Canada, and this is where they feed in the summer. And these colored lines each represent a different track of a different leatherback turtle as it left the Canadian waters and are swimming down towards, essentially towards the Caribbean mostly. Some of them are out in the middle of the ocean, some along the coast of North America. And this is where they nest. And we've been tracking their progress, and it looks like, this is the latest screen grab from the race. It looks like one of them is very close to nesting right now, but the others are still way out in the middle of the ocean. The purpose of this project is similar to the roe, which is the fact that we have Canadian wildlife, animals that we consider Canadian wildlife, that are in fact global species. They range throughout the ocean, they travel long distances, they exist in multiple national jurisdictions, so they are a shared wildlife resource, they are a shared wildlife heritage of the globe, and we have a responsibility to look after them, particularly when they're in our waters, but our responsibility has to extend beyond the range and influence of our country. And we want to show that through this. We want to show that through the roe as well. By way of comparison, this dotted line and X show approximately the track and location of the rowers who are rowing from Africa to America right now. And it's funny because we gave a turtle to a bunch of different groups to sort of sponsor and speak for the turtles. And the guys on this row sort of sponsored one turtle, and this one right here called Trekker. And they sort of rode right just north of it, about 600 kilometers north of the turtle that they were sponsoring. It was the one that went furthest over towards Africa of all of the turtles, and we thought that was kind of interesting. So anyway, if you're more interested in learning about this project, you can go check it out at turtlerace.ca, and you'll see more information there. So what are the rowers seeing out there? That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Here's a screen grab from their Facebook, one of their Facebook posts, and I thought it was really interesting because it says, this is a post, I'm not sure who posted this, I'm sorry, but it's a post. It says, horizon to horizon, everywhere you look, it feels like you're in the center of your own universe, so strange. And this is essentially what they're seeing out there. They are on a rowboat on a round globe, surrounded by water, completely flat, no features around them except waves and sky. And what are they seeing? Well, they're seeing a pretty flat world. How far can they see if you're on a curved surface? Even if it's a very large curved surface like the Earth, how far can they see? Well, if we think about it in terms of no atmospheric distortion, which can happen, so it can bend light and so on, and based on the size of our planet, if the rowers are right here on the curve of the Earth, here's Jordan, and if he's looking out towards the horizon, how far can he see? Well, he can see about 5 kilometers roughly, and that's it, in any direction, because there are no hills, there's no trees, there's no wave, or there's some waves, but there's not much that's going to get in their way. And they're moving at about 2 knots, which is sort of 3 or 4 kilometers an hour. So every hour, they're basically getting to a new part of the ocean that they couldn't see before because the Earth is curving away from them and they're not able to see it. They're on a part of our planet that is really enormous, and they can really start to get a sense of just how enormous our planet is. This is one of my favorite little cartoons. I don't know if you can see it here. I'll read it to you. So it's showing a little dude sitting on a little desert island with a palm tree, stranded in the middle of the ocean. It says, day 44, still stranded with nothing but flat, empty water as far as the eye can see. And this is a common joke many of us know about, but the rest of this joke is what's below this. And this is what's underneath that flat, empty water as far as the eye can see. Of course, there's all kinds of stuff that's going on. This sand island that he's trapped on is probably a very special feature in the ocean. There's all kinds of things, both man-made and natural, that are occurring in the ocean around him, and are completely out of sight, completely almost beyond our understanding and our ability to experience it, and all he can see is the surface of the ocean. And these rowers, in a way, are dealing with this as well. They're much more aware that there's stuff going on below them, but it's all that they can perceive. So as I said, the rowers are on one of the largest habitats on Earth right now. They're rowing across the open ocean, which is also known as the Pelagic System. And you can see on the globe, I assume this globe is moving for you, you know, most of our globe, most of our world is ocean. And most of it is sort of open ocean, flat open ocean, the Pelagic System. And this is what they're actually experiencing, and the wildlife that lives there. It looks the same. It's one big flat featureless area, but the ocean is not all the same. It's actually chopped up into many different types of habitats. Even this surface of the ocean is as well. And there's different things that chop it up. The first one, or one of them anyway, is depth. The depth of the ocean varies. This is Africa on the right, North America on sort of the top left-hand corner, and South America in the bottom left-hand corner. And you can see the different depths of the ocean here, shallow near the continents, deeper in the basins just away from the continents. In the very middle of the ocean is this mountain range called the Midatlantic Ridge. It's the longest mountain range in the world. They're just about to row over top of this thing. It's about 1.5 to 2 kilometers off the ocean floor, but it's still a full 2 to 3 kilometers underwater, so they're not gonna see it or sense anything in that way. But depth makes a big difference for habitat. Another one is currents. The ocean is always moving. The ocean moves water around from one area to another. It moves nutrients, it moves animals, it moves temperature as well, and that's a very important feature. These are grabs from NOAA's estimates of how currents move up the coast of North America through Florida, the Gulf Stream, and this is another screen grab of modeling that they do along the northern coast of South America and how the ocean moves. So currents are an extremely important part of the ocean, and they create different habitat as well. Temperature is the other thing, from the warm tropical seas all the way up to the polar seas. Temperature makes an enormous difference in creating different types of habitats and everything in between in the ocean, and this is an important feature. And finally, one of the most important features for creating habitat in the ocean is light. Light can't penetrate into water very well. Water absorbs light, but light's very important for plant growth and what's called primary production. And yet, when we look at the different layers of the ocean, we label them different names based on how much light can get into them. And here's a quick cross-section showing different layers of the ocean. The top layer that you may not be able to read is called epipelagic, and it goes down to about 200 meters, and then there's mesopelagic, bathypelagic, abyssopelagic, and hadopelagic, very deep, deep ocean. Light can only penetrate that top layer, only 200 meters, but the ocean goes down 3,000 meters or more, all the way down to 12,000 meters. And light is only penetrating the top 200 meters, and all primary productivity, plant primary productivity, comes from that surface layer. There's other ways for productivity to occur in the deep ocean, but it doesn't account for as much. So it's very important. Light is very important for creating different habitat in this system. So what are the rowers seeing out there besides ocean and flatness? Well, they saw a leatherback turtle. This is a screen grab from one of the videos that they had of a leatherback turtle that came up and swam around their boat and checked them out and bumped into them once and swam away, so that's pretty cool. They have lots of barnacles on the sides of their boat, which they're trying to clean off regularly so that they're maintaining their efficiency on the boat, but obviously these have come from larvae that are floating in the water column, contacted the boat, and sort of colonized the boat, essentially. They see flying fish all the time. These are fish that have very large fins. They swim very fast in the pelagic system. There's a lot of characteristics that wildlife in the pelagic system have to have, one of which is that they're very fast swimmers and they can go long distances. These fish have adapted to being able to leap out of the water and spread their fins to be able to glide through the air and escape predators or cover distance more quickly. And they're seeing these things all the time. And of course, seabirds as well as dolphins and some small whales they're seeing, and these are also creatures of this habitat of where there is featureless, fast-moving, large, open distances, and they have to be able to cover large distances to be able to find their food. There are also smaller things too, like jellyfish. This is a Portuguese man-o-war, also called Physalia. They're seeing these on the ocean surface. They've seen a large billfin. This is another large predatory fish that swims through the ocean and trying to find them. Pilot whales they've seen and posted a video as well, so you can check that out. They're seeing all kinds of stuff out there. They're seeing this thing. I don't even know what this thing is. This is some of the sampling equipment they're using, where they heave it overboard on a rope, take some samples, and they pulled it up. And they report that they pulled this up attached to it. And I'm not sure what it is. It's clearly an invertebrate of some sort, but the photo isn't quite good enough for us to figure out what it is. But it goes to show just the range of animals and organisms that are living out in this ocean, and the diversity of body shapes and things that they're adapted to be able to survive here. They also saw this. This is another screen grab from a video of a large fish that was swimming around underneath their boat. It's called a dolphin fish, or mahi-mahi, or dorado sometimes. It's another very beautiful, fast-swimming, open ocean predatory fish looking for food and other fish to eat. So what else might the rowers see out there I wanted to talk about? One thing they haven't reported seeing yet is sharks. Sharks are a common organism in this habitat. It's nothing for them to be concerned about, but these are also fast-swimming, ocean-going fish, predators looking for other fish to eat, and I wouldn't be surprised if they start to report seeing them. I just recently noticed that they posted saying that they've been seeing or hearing whales around them, but they're not quick enough to get any photos so we can see what kind there are. But large whales, this is a picture of a blue whale off the coast of Canada, I think. But clearly they're going to run into some of these as well. This is an ocean sunfish, a large fish that swims through the oceans and comes into the coasts once in a while. And then if they pay attention, they can see some really amazing things. This is a tiny little slug that floats upside down on the surface of the ocean. And similarly, this is a snail that blows bubbles and floats upside down on the surface of the ocean. These two things float around the ocean hunting for jellyfish that I just showed you a few minutes ago, and they eat those. So if they really pay attention, and I got to say they're doing a great job sort of paying attention to these details, they're going to see a lot more wildlife and a lot of very interesting things out in the ocean. Here's a quote I just saw from Adam, one of the rowers who posted, I think it was yesterday or the day before. You know, what are the rowers seeing out there? He said, this is what he just wrote: "The ocean on one hand is vast and similar." I like that. On the other hand, the ocean is filled with fractal details. And he goes on to say, the closer you look at things, the more and more you start seeing. And that is certainly the case, you know. What are they seeing out there? Well, it looks flat, but it's not. And they know it's not, and we know it's not flat, but that's what they're seeing. It looks vast and similar. It looks like it's all one habitat. It doesn't change, but it's not. We know it's different. We know there are a variety of different habitats out there. You might be tempted to think it's lifeless, although these guys are reporting that they're seeing lots of life, so that's good. But it most certainly isn't. There is a lot of life occurring out there, taking advantage of all of the different habitats and features in this system and being able to survive and grow. It also might seem like the ocean is beyond our effect. It's so large, how could we ever affect it? But we know that's not as well. We have established very well that we are able to have we humans, we Canadians are able to have major impacts on the ocean and change it in ways we didn't think we ever would be able to. But in fact, we actually can. And these are the types of things that they're actually seeing out there. That's all I'm going to talk to you about right now. If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. The last thing I'll do is leave you with a quote, a description from Jesse Ozabel, who wrote a book about the census of marine life. And he described the ocean this way. He said, "The ocean is a place where extreme is normal and rare is common." And I really like that. That really sort of sums up what the ocean is. The ocean is so vastly different from what we understand. We tend to assume we understand how it works. But the ecosystems work different from the ecosystems we're from. The animals operate different. It's in an environment we can't perceive, and it's totally different from the world that we're used to. And yet it makes up most of the world that we live on, and we need to be able to manage how we use it so that we don't abuse it. That's all I'm going to talk about today. Thanks very much for your time. If you'd like to do questions, I'm happy to try and answer some questions. Otherwise, my contact information is there, and please feel free to contact me anytime.
Thanks, Sean. Hopefully you can hear me now.
Yep, no worries.
Good, because I just switched it off the microphones and just have gone internally again, just so we can hear things. So does anyone here have any questions? Okay, if there's no questions, there are. Oh, good, we have questions in the back. No? I have some questions, right? I sent them to the boat. I'm waiting to hear back from the boat as well, so. Now, he's not going to be able to hear you, okay? So, come on up a little closer.
Yeah, this mic is just terrible. Speak slow and clear, please.
Slow and clear. Gotta remember, Dr. Brilliant he's older than you are, so, you know, it may take a little longer to hear.
Are there any endangered species?
Endangered species? Yes.
What kind might there be, for example?
In the Atlantic.
In the Atlantic.
Yeah, no, certainly there are. The leatherback turtle, one example of an endangered species. Some of these whales that they may be seeing are like endangered species as well. Atlantic Ocean, but you know, the tricky thing is we haven't figured out what all the animals are. But those that we have, most, especially the ones that are big, we tend to have abused them, either hurt them, or they tended to be in the way as we use the ocean for our purposes. And as a result, many of them are in the ocean, also various species of whales, but there's also things that live deeper in the ocean that we have yet to even to find or even understand how common they are or how we're affecting them. There are megamouth sharks, there are very deep water squids, for example. There's a number of seabirds as well that travel such long distances we can't find. So the short answer to your question is yes, there are many endangered species, some of which they're seeing. They've certainly seen it in leatherback turtles, so this is one, and they're probably going to encounter others out there as well.
Okay, and he's got another question or so.
Shoot.
What is the average yearly amount of storms?
Yes, storms in the Atlantic. Yeah, someone had said that they were asking about that. So like a couple things. A storm is a very specific thing that happens, right? So a rain shower, something that just rains and has a bit of wind. These types of things can pop up really commonly, especially where they're where they're rowing. They're sort of just north of the equator, so the water is quite warm. There's a lot of evaporation going on. Storm clouds can get quite thick, and then there'll be sudden rains or sudden winds and so on. In terms of actual storms, where you get large cyclonic hurricane-like storms, there's only on average, about 100 storms a year in the ocean. I think more like 80 or 90 storms a year in all of the oceans of the world. And in the Atlantic, it's sort of, I don't know what the average is, but, it sort of ranges from 5 to maybe 15 or 20 each year, where you get a large storm that forms actually somewhere around where they are and runs into North America and up the coast. And that only happens at certain times of the year, so they're sort of lucky not lucky, they're sure they planned it this way to avoid that sort of stormy season. But that's about how many a year we can expect in the Atlantic. But in the meantime, there are often a lot of rain showers and wind and wave events that will occur, and I don't even know how many that would be, but certainly quite a few, really.
Did they not run into a big storm just as they started, Sean?
Yeah, I think I recall them saying that as well, and sometimes the difficult thing with storms, especially in the ocean, is when a storm hits one part of the ocean, even if you don't hit the storm, that makes a lot of waves, and those waves spread out across the ocean, and everything around them has to deal with these big waves too. And sometimes these guys will be dealing with the storm surge of the waves that are coming their way, or the swells that are coming their way, without having dealt with the storm. But I think they have dealt with some storms, and I'm certain they're going to deal with some more along the way too. Hopefully nothing as severe or dangerous as a hurricane. That seems quite unlikely.
Okay, thanks for that, Sean. Question? Just one? So you can hear it, so we can hear you better.
Have you seen any sharks when you were out there?
Are there sharks out there and around?
There are certainly sharks out there. They haven't reported seeing any, at least that I've seen from the reporting that we're getting from them, but they definitely will. They're not anything that need to be concerned about. They're in a big boat. They look like an animal that's 10 meters long, so they sort of look like a big fish, and other fish are not going to give them any trouble. If they happen to be in the water when there's a large predatory fish around, they may get checked out or they may get looked at, but as long as they're careful, just like being around any sort of wildlife, the wildlife in the ocean, whether it's a leatherback turtle, which doesn't seem dangerous, or a shark, which people might think of as being more dangerous. In any case, you always have to be careful with wildlife. These animals are big, you don't know what they're doing, they're often curious. Occasionally they will view us as food, but not often. And as long as you're careful, you won't have any trouble, and I don't think that they're in any sort of, have any sort of threat from the animals and wildlife that they're going to see out there, as long as they're careful and use their heads. And they will almost certainly come across some sharks. In fact, I would be surprised if they've not yet been checked out by sharks to see what they were before swimming away, and they may not have even known. Most of them won't be, some of them can be quite big because they're out in the ocean, but most of them will be quite small, especially blue sharks, which are very common in the ocean. These things can get a couple meters long maybe, but usually are much smaller than that. It'll be very exciting if they see one. I can't wait to hear their reaction to it. It could be quite exciting.
Hey, Ms. Moore, you were going to say something?
Yeah, one of the other questions we had from last week was the water temperature, where they are. We know they're near the equator, so wondering what the temperature of the ocean is.
They are experiencing lovely water. The water temperature in their area is probably 22 to 25 degrees Celsius, and probably pretty stable as well, very consistent. It'd be lovely to jump in the water every once in a while. They're probably experiencing fairly high salinity. The water would be very salty, and that's because there's so much evaporation. The water's so warm and there's so much wind in the air that there's a lot of water being evaporated from the ocean surface, and it makes the ocean surface even saltier than usual. But it would be very warm, well, relatively warm. Where I come from in the Maritimes, we don't hit 25 degrees, 22 degrees at all, so it would be lovely water. But I guess by tropical standards, it might not be very warm. But that's the temperature they're dealing with. I think they're measuring it on their website as well, so you can probably look, and it'll probably look fairly consistent. It would be very stable over a lot of the distance that they're going.
Any other questions? I know there's one more that we haven't actually answered yet. We did it a little bit. The shark question is kind of related to it. Is there any sea life that would be a danger to the, or anything on the ocean that would be a danger to the rowers, other than the weather?
Yeah. Well, almost certainly. I mean, as I said earlier, any wildlife you really got to take seriously and use your head around and be aware of. There are some things that could cause them harm without realizing it. For example, these jellyfish they're seeing, they're calling them Portuguese man of war, Visalia. They tend to see them on the ocean surface. If they happen to be in the water and get stung by them, that can be painful. I've been stung by those before. It can cause quite a lot of itching. If it's a very large jellyfish, it can cause some very serious damage. And usually they'll see it because it'll be a big jellyfish in the water with lots of tentacles, but they do need to be very careful. As well, you know, if they're in the water, they're in a lot more, they have to be much more aware than if they're not. You know, even being in the water and a leatherback turtle comes along, or a shark, of course, these are big animals that could be curious and cause a lot of harm. In the boat, though, very unlikely that anything will hurt them. There won't be a lot that's going to be looking at getting them from in that boat. And as long as these guys are using their head and sort of respecting their distance to nature and respecting the behavior of these animals, they should be all right.
Okay, anything else, Ms. Moore?
That was...
Because I know Jordan jumped overboard the other day and started cleaning out barnacles off the boat. He said that they were very aware of looking for sharks.
Oh, they were, okay.
Yeah, of course. Yep, that's the way to do it. It's a very unnerving thing as well to be floating in 3,000 meters of water or 4,000 meters of water and have nothing below you, or nothing you can see below you, but 3,000 meters worth of habitat below you, and trying to imagine what might be swimming around or looking at you from underneath. And they certainly are not alone out there.
All right. I don't know that anybody here I don't think anybody from this class was actually asking questions of the crew or of anything. Was anybody asking another question that they wanted an answer to, or is now the time to ask the question? We do have two boys that are actually keeping track of a map going across, and so they're about halfway, aren't they? Is that pretty much the distance they are right now?
They're just coming up to what's called the Midatlantic Ridge, yeah.
Okay.
So this map is pretty accurate.
Yeah, we're just finishing off some more days. We've got more days to add.
Yeah.
All right, if there's nothing else, I want to thank you, Sean, again, for coming in and giving a great presentation and giving lots of great information for us.
Yeah, really nice talking to you guys. If anybody has any questions, don't be shy to get a hold of me anytime.
Okay.
And we have his email.
All right.
And the email is right there in the bottom corner.
Sean B. Yeah. Jot that down.
All right. Have a good one, Sean, and enjoy your wonderful weather out there.
Yeah. All right. Bye, guys. Thanks very much.
And we'll see you tomorrow.